Alright, welcome to this module on RevMob tips and tricks. My name is Abhinav Gupta and I'm going to be going over some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the past year or so while using RevMob. And hopefully this will be really beneficial to you. Maybe you might know some of the stuff and maybe you might not. So hopefully you can take something with this and help yourself to increase your revenues. Alright, so the first tip or trick is I like to double dip. I'll use another interstitial ad. For example, I actually use Chartboost a lot, and I actually put the Chartboost interstitial ad right after the RevMob ad. And so what ends up happening is the user basically sees two ads and they flow together very nicely. So you can actually double up on your actual interstitial income just by doing that. Alright. Another tip or trick is RevMob just recently added controls that allow you to choose, different types of ads, such as, dating, gambling, religion. They are for older audiences, and so I would recommend if you actually have an app that actually caters to an older audience, that's fine. Then you can actually go and uncheck those and allow those types of ads to show, and that will actually increase your revenue even more. Okay, but just make sure that you make these changes only if your app's age rating permits you to actually show these sort of ads. Alright, and so the way you're going to do that is you're going to go to your app on RevMob and you're going to click on edit and you're going to uncheck these three items here, which is the dating, gambling, and religion. And what will end up happening then is you'll actually end up seeing more revenues coming in just by doing that one little step there. Once again, just make sure that your app is allowed to show those sort of ads, and if it is, great, you'll actually be earning a little bit more revenue with your RevMob ads. Alright, another tip is plan your interstitial usage. Alright, basically more users will uninstall your app if you just keep on showing them ads immediately when they load your app up. Alright, I would recommend to actually pace your ads, right? So just pace it. Go through it and ask yourself, where is a good place to show my ad? So for example, a great place would be at the end of a game level if you've got a video game, or on a pause button if someone hits the pause button, sort of thing. Alright, so that's how you would actually get the best how I would say engagement sort of thing from your actual users, rather than blasting them with ads immediately. You'll get a lot more uninstalls that way. Another one is by using game banners. So instead of actually using interstitial banners, you can use RevMob banners inside as well with your interstitial. So for example, an interstitial is your full screen, and then if they hit the pause button, they might actually see the RevMob banner ad right below. So that's a really cool way to go hand in hand and kind of double up even more with RevMob. Alright, another one is increasing your downloads. If you increase your downloads, you increase your revenue. That's basically the idea. And one of the things I always recommend is to make sure that your app is free to maximize the amount of downloads that you get. I've seen developers who actually put a RevMob enabled app for paid, and I've seen that before. You're not gonna really get that many downloads, and hence not enough revenue to really cover that. So I would recommend keep your app for free. Go and post around everywhere that you can that you've got a free app, and the more downloads you get, the more RevMob revenue you're going to end up getting. Okay, this one here I've noticed over time because I've got apps in so many different marketplaces. If you are on a tight budget and you can only do one market, I would say do iOS RevMob versus Android RevMobs. And in general, I've noticed that the iOS RevMob gets me a lot more money than the Android versions. Alright, so I would recommend that. So, I mean, if you want to stick to Android RevMob because that's all you know, that's fine. But if you're on a budget and you can only choose one or the other, iOS will get you a lot more revenue. Okay, and that's what I've noticed in my own experience. Okay, your more apps button. If you use RevMob with that, you're going to get even more revenue. So that's a really good way to actually get RevMob going, is with a more apps button. If you don't have one, put one in. Right, and it's usually a simple integration. Just tell your developers, if you're not the developer yourself, tell your developers just add a more apps button and link it to RevMob, and you'll see a lot more revenue coming up from that alone. Alright, and frequency. This is very important. frequency is basically how often do you show your ad. If you know the right amount of times to show your users the ads, you will be able to increase your actual revenue. It's going to be different based on the type of app you've got, right? Some apps will have a higher frequency that you want to show the ads versus other apps. Just make sure you get the right balance. With the right amount of balance, you'll be able to create the right amount of money with the least amount of users uninstalling your app. And so that's the kind of art, I guess you would say. It would be kind of like an art, just trying to understand the right balance between the frequency and getting the right amount of revenue. Once again, if you make the ads part of the overall experience, the actual user will be much more happier with it versus you actually putting it in at the beginning and pissing users off. Another great tip is to read Apple, Google, and Amazon news all the time. Rules are changing every single week, every single month. It changes, and so you want to keep up with the latest SDK changes. Just recently, there was one for the UDID, which is a identifier on any iPhone or iPad. That's kind of how you identify that actual device. Now if you put an app in with that, it'll get rejected, and so you want to make sure that your ad SDK companies that you're using will also follow those changes so that you don't get your app rejected when you actually put it in. Alright, so that's the end of the module there. I hope you got some insight on some cool little tips and tricks that you could use with RevMob with your actual apps. We went over many of the interesting ideas and tips that I've had, and even some tricks with RevMob over the past year and a half of using RevMob myself. And we even learned about things like frequency and how often you want to put an ad inside of there, and even integrating the actual ads so that they feel like they're part of the entire experience. That is a huge key point there that I would like to hit home with, because if you can make the user feel like the ad was actually part of the game or the app, they will more than likely keep your app and they won't uninstall it, and chances are they may even watch the ad and click on it, sort of thing, and do an action, which is installing, which means higher revenues for you. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this, and I look forward to seeing you in another future course or another program. Once again, this is Abhinav Gupta, and I'm from Game Scorpion Inc. Take care.